Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Welcome to the Dominion Podcast, episode 41. I am your host, Jeremy Boyd.
And I'm Alex.
And we got a couple guests in studio with us tonight. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Let us know a little bit about yourselves.
I'm Jacob, member of Hill City Baptist Church.
Member? Just a member?
Yeah, Jacob is one of our, well, he's our only intern right now.
Yeah.
He's working full time, so it's kind of, he's doing other things too.
He's doing yeoman's work.
Yeah, he runs our student ministry,
Nice.
and he preaches, and he writes off pretty much weekly for us as well. So
Nice. You guys have a like a blog that
we have every week a newsletter goes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is Tristan. All right, let's get to tonight's topic. I'm just kidding.
I'm good with that.
This is the Tristan Inglis of the Upper 40 Studio, of course, who prepared this beautiful room for us. You might notice we got a different camera angle tonight.
Yeah.
It's because we're all slightly overweight, except for Tristan, and we couldn't fit us all in frame. So
I like that you said slightly. It's like, I'll settle for that.
I'm not morbidly obese. Although the way I eat, sometimes you think I was trying to be. But
It's good to have you boys.
It is good to have everybody here. Mm-hmm. And what is the reason you guys are here? I mean, you guys have had some excitement over the last week and a bit, I suppose. So
yeah, well, we are all now hardened criminals.
That's right.
If you notice our teardrop tattoos.
This is for my homies got sent up the river.
No, we thought we would. We all were up in Ottawa this weekend, and was that your first time there, guys? For the protest? Did you go any other day?
That was my second.
Yes, you went up with your boss.
Yeah,
That was my third.
Your third time.
Yeah, a couple of friends of mine and myself actually joined the convoy when it rolled into Ottawa the first week. Yeah.
So we thought what we would do is recap this. There's a lot of misinformation going around. I mean, I hate that term because every time it's used, it basically means it's true. Whenever you hear someone say it's misinformation, you should think that there's a 70% chance what that person said was true.
Yeah. I've got a new method for discerning the truth in the news. If one of the major outlets says it, it's usually the opposite.
Yeah, polar opposite.
Polar opposite. Mm-hmm. Maybe not factually, but the narrative is opposite to what they're pushing.
Yeah. So I thought what we could do is maybe recap our experience. We were all arrested on Saturday.
Not me.
Not you.
I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
I didn't participate in these shenanigans.
Yeah. So maybe we could talk about, maybe go back before that. And as we witnessed the protests from the ground before things got crazy and just share our experience, because the narrative of our prime minister and his propaganda machine in the mainstream media is literally the opposite. It's not just actually off or different. It's the opposite of what's true. And it was an intentional propaganda campaign against them.
Well, so let me lay it out as people have probably heard it.
Yep.
And then you guys can sort of go through the points one by one and say why those are false. So basically what you've been hearing in the news is that there's a large group of MAGA-influenced, Trump-supporting insurrectionists that made their way to the Capitol and completely choked off traffic all through the downtown area. They were harassing people, harassing business owners, basically holding the city captive with the aim of overthrowing the government. Mm-hmm. And so the government had to step in and enact the emergency measures for some reason, because the normal law wasn't sufficient to disperse the crowd, which was threatening our democracy since they're trying to overthrow things. So how's that? That's a pretty good recap of the mainstream narrative.
Yeah, there's the misogynist, racist, white supremacist, white nationalist.
I feel dirty. I feel like I need to have a shower after saying that.
Yeah. So we went down for ourselves. I went down on last Monday with my brother, and then I went down with Ben on Wednesday to Saturday. And when I went down on Monday, things were obviously a lot less a lot less. There's a lot less people than there are on the weekends on the Monday. But when I went down on Wednesday, because the trucker, the leadership of the convoy, put out a message on social media that they were concerned that the authorities were going to escalate things to violence and extreme measures, which they did. That their advice was for as many people as possible to make it to Ottawa, not as a show of force, so to speak, but actually as a deterrent.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is that this convoy was made up of normal working class people. Mm-hmm. There were women and children and grandmothers, and I would say your average Canadian.
So it wasn't militia guys,
no,
dressed in camo.
No, it wasn't that at all. It was actually a good cross section of working class Canada. Mm. And I mean, we saw this when we went to the bridge in Port Hope to see the convoy. There was 1,000 people on the bridge, and apparently every bridge from, the GTA to Brighton and further was full of people.
All the way.
Full of people.
Yeah.
And not fringe, not, radicals or extremists, literally just normal people.
With unacceptable views.
Yeah, with unacceptable views. And the crazy thing is, not only was this not a bad scene, it was the best scene you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we experienced that on the bridge. The patriotism and the kindness and the neighborliness and the joy and the happiness. I mean, I haven't seen that in years. And I don't think I've ever experienced that, even at Canada Day things. Mm-hmm. And when we went to Ottawa, that was just exploded. I mean, all of the food was free. So there was multiple food tents because people just came and set up. We're making food. Like every morning we were there, we went and there was a breakfast tent. And they were just giving away bacon and eggs on like a sandwich, like every morning, and coffee. Now, many people donated, which was so encouraging too. Like many people would give $20, $50, $100 for their sandwich to donate. I was actually I was at the Freedom Soup tent where they're just giving away soup all day.
Freedom Soup.
It's yeah. Freedom Soup is way better than commie soup. That's for sure.
Yeah, because that's just potatoes and cabbage.
Yeah, exactly.
In a weak broth.
Yeah,
and maybe some beets.
And I noticed when I was there on Monday, people who appeared to be homeless kept like fist pumping and saying, "Hey, thanks for coming and good to see you." And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's interesting." And I was at the soup kitchen, and one of the gentlemen I met earlier was there, and I heard him say to his buddy, he's like, "Wow, this is sure better than the soup kitchen." and they loved it. And you remember there was a fake news story about truckers and their protesters, robbing from the homeless.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, truckers know how to pack supplies. It's what they do. They didn't come to Ottawa and then steal from homeless people.
Yeah, they had enough food to last a lot longer than they lasted.
Yeah. And they were actually feeding homeless people all week. And the homeless people I met were just so stoked that they were there.
So when did you guys roll into town? Did you guys go up together?
Well, no, we were up separate. You were up you went the night before. You went Friday night.
Friday night I went up.
And I wanted to obviously get down there as soon as possible after hearing the trucker kind of give the call out to everyone who can get down here. And we left Saturday morning early, drove through traditional Canadian terrible roads, and got there around 10 or so. Mm-hmm. I brought my family to the bridge, Port Hope, when the truckers were coming through, and I share the same sentiment. I never felt more proud to be a Canadian.
Yeah.
And it was just, I had to bring my kids there because it was like, this was a historical event, and to show them that, there are Canadians out there who care for their freedom. And it was actually emotional, just witnessing the vulnerability of all sorts of different people, just there on their basic, basic rights of being what a human is, and celebrating the truckers there. And I'm like, I personally wanted to go there instead of just being an armchair warrior and commenting from behind my screen. I actually wanted to go there and talk with truckers and actually have the on-the-ground experience, which I got. I don't know, when you were out Friday night, I guess, with your friends.
Yeah, but even to kind of go back to what you were saying too, I had the privilege of actually driving up with the convoy the first week, and that was an amazing experience. Like many of the friends that were with me, we were kind of joking, like, "Wow, this is the first time in our lives that we realized like we've actually ever felt patriotic before, right? You just never realized how, I don't know, just sort of bland Canada was or had become, I guess, right? Until all of a sudden you were with thousands of other Canadians that cared about what Canada is supposed to be. And so anyways, we got to drive up with hundreds of trucks and kind of roll down the 417. And from there, we sort of broke off and found parking and then took the subway in just because we didn't want to get locked in the city. But yeah, like we came out onto the street and all your classic Canadian stereotypes were just amplified. Like there were literally, guys walking around with mustaches and doubles, waving hockey stick Canada flags. Like
it's just the best thing.
I saw a guy with the Turd Ferguson cowboy hat on. The Norm Macdonald giant foam cowboy hat.
Yeah,
it's like I like this guy. I'd like to meet him.
And my general takeaway from that first weekend was just a sense of joy and camaraderie. These were people who obviously over the last 2 years have been suffering to various degrees under all the different mandates and lockdowns, and but all of that was different because now people were laughing and looking each other in the face, seeing each other face to face. There was singing, there was prayer, there was celebration. It was a beautiful, beautiful time. And the second time I went, it was the same thing. And then even this past weekend, in light of everything that happened, I was impressed that it still managed to maintain that kind of atmosphere to a large degree.
Well,
yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I tell people it's basically like a farmer's market, but not for elitists. Farmer's market now, it's way more expensive than normal supermarkets. So really, it's yuppies that show up to farmers markets. I mean, it's not what it used to be.
If you want tiny purple potatoes, go to the farmer's market.
Yeah, it's not what it was when I was a kid. When it's like it's cheaper things direct from the farm. It's like more expensive things. But if you picture literally like a farmer's market from 30 years ago, and just working class people, that's what it. But it was even better because everyone was friendly. It's because you were there to uphold and respect the dignity of your neighbor. Like that's why people are there. They actually did that for you. Like these people are the ones who are willing to sacrifice and to bear the cost for other people. That's why they were there. And they would say, even to the police, they'd say, we're doing this for you, right? Like we're here for your freedoms. And even if there are many signs that it said something to the effect of, even if you disagree with us, we're doing this for you. And that just shone through the whole time. And on top of that, there was a large portion of Christians. I mean, tons of trucks had scripture on them.
Yeah, I saw some of those.
Oh yeah, and
huge, this whole side of the back of the transport just covered in these messages.
And they would there was a main stage where they would have like a rotation of speakers. So many speakers were Christians, from various stripes. But the gospel, you could hear the gospel 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times a day from the main stage. And there was, we were up on Parliament Hill and there was a hymn sing going on, Mighty Fortress, I think Abide With Me, and the Doxology, and like solid hymns, and tons of people praying for people, and people doing street evangelism. And the encouraging thing is a tolerance and respect from people who aren't Christians. So it wasn't like the Christian gets up to speak and people are like, good grief. Like, it's just everyone would sit respectfully and listen. This person gets to share their view and this person gets to share. It was like true tolerance. And I felt totally safe. I would 100% have brought my small children to that and wish I did, before things got crazy for them to see. It was the safest place you could be in Ottawa, for sure. Like definitely
safer than Canada's Wonderland.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Definitely safer than Canada's Wonderland.
How about Disneyland?
I haven't been.
Can't say.
The first week that I was there, actually, I got to hear two of the truckers get up to speak. And this is, first day that everybody's kind of down there. And they were urging Canadians to go back to church. And if you're a Christian here, get your churches open. And one of them explicitly said, because Jesus Christ is our only way out of this. And then as well, from the main stage, it was all the things that the media was accusing them of, I heard publicly denounced by the organizers and people making speeches. It was like they were constantly reminding and urging people to stay peaceful, to stay respectful. It was nothing like what the media was saying that it was.
If you're like me, that is really discouraging. Mm-hmm. That the narrative that most people believe is so radically different than what's actually happening on the ground and what's actually happening in people's minds and hearts.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that's the hardest for me to get around. Just the outright, blatant, knowing lies. Like, there's no way that Trudeau and his cabinet believe what they're saying. They know the truth.
Well, and the media, they were there.
The media were there. They know it's not true. They're just willing to tell an absolute lie to get what they want.
Well, and it's not any lie. It's bearing false witness. It's with malicious intent.
Right.
Because it's one thing to say, oh, there's no protest happening or something. It's nothing to say everyone over there is a morally reprehensible person.
It's an occupation
that is that clearly was intended to be able to justify any kind of oppression done against them. Like, can you believe a First Nations woman, an elderly First Nations woman, was trampled by white people on horses?
Yeah.
In our nation's capital. And it's like, that's not the biggest thing ever. Can you imagine?
If she had been holding an orange flag, it would be a completely different story.
Can you imagine if she was carrying an orange flag and it was a conservative government and they did that? It would be like immediate resignation of the prime minister, firing of the police chief.
Rightfully so.
And rightfully so,
Yep.
kind of thing. So anyways, the propaganda. So we just want to say it was an amazing atmosphere. It was full of kindness and respect and love and unity and the kind of country you would hope you could be a part of. It was like, oh, this is why people leave every corner of the earth to come here, was for this. And I've never even experienced that in my life. You know, I've heard that's what we're about, but we're really not. But for those 3 weeks, it's like the best of Canada. And you know, people of all races there and various religious backgrounds, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. The one image that really sticks in my mind, it was from near the beginning of the protests, where you had the young white woman with pink hair holding a sign about how everyone there is a white supremacist. Freedom is a white supremacist thing, and there's like a Sikh guy beside her talking about freedom and how awesome it is, and like he loves being a Canadian and all this stuff, and it's like, this is just so surreal. You're not even listening. You know.
Well, it's the danger. We've talked about the danger of ideology, right? What the Bible calls folly. Like, you actually can't think in other paradigms. So when you say like all truckers are racist, you truly believe that. And you go, and no matter what your eyes witness, you can't actually comprehend that. You just suppress the truth.
A good example of that, I was scrolling through Twitter after everything had kind of gone down on Friday, and that video of the elderly lady being trampled was being shared around, and a woman literally commented on it and said, the Ottawa police said there was no violence. And she was like, she was defending it, and someone just responded to her and was like, how do you believe that over your own eyeballs? Like, the video is 100%. Right there, but you're so blinded by your ideology that you actually are just like, but the police said there was no violence.
Well, Jesus talked about this. Even if someone were to rise from the dead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, the problem is not that you need more evidence. The problem is what you do with the evidence. And in our own sin, we protect our ideas. We protect our righteousness. We demonize others. We keep the narrative that puts us at the top, that puts people on the bottom, this type of thing. It's amazing, to the point where, my brother-in-law had the same experience. He sent people videos and they're like, well, what's the source? It's like, Like, do you see the video?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Reminds me of that that section in Jeremiah after or during the exile, as they're being exiled,
Yeah.
and a lot of the nobles in Israel were going back to Egypt. Rather than listen, Jeremiah said, "Listen, just go to Babylon, right? Go with them, and you'll have your lives as a prize of war, right?" And they said, "No, we're going to go to Egypt because we don't believe that this is going to end up in a full thing." And they're seeing it happen in front of their eyes, but they just won't believe it. And so they go to Egypt, and they continue sacrificing to their idols, specifically to the Queen of Heaven. I'm not sure which goddess that was. And Jeremiah says to them, like, "Hey guys, we're here because of your idolatry. That's the reason God is spewing us out of the land." And they said, "Well, when we were in Jerusalem, we would sacrifice to the Queen of Heaven and everything was good. And then now we're supposed to sacrifice to Yahweh when we're out here? Like, things were good for us back in Jerusalem." And it's like, yeah, God was just being patient with you. You were still being an idolater, you know. But it's that lack of being able to see, even in the midst of their judgment, completely unable to see why they were being judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to wrap up that part of the conversation, it was an amazing experience. It was a peaceful protest, 100% peaceful, a conscious effort, no matter what was said about them, to respond with lies, with love and tolerance. And it wasn't a blockade. This is the other thing. I went down there thinking, and I mean, when they rolled in, I was hoping they would block up the whole city. Like, this is cool. It wasn't a blockade.
Yeah.
You could get emergency vehicles down. There was lanes open. Cops were driving by, even on Wellington.
It's more blockaded now than it was then.
When I was down there, a woman drove by in her car and yelled at me to put a mask on.
Oh,
Was she wearing one in her car?
I don't know. I didn't get a good look, but yeah. But people were driving around in the downtown, and you could walk about freely. No obstruction at all.
no.
It's funny, the narrative we heard with that there's a whole bunch of angry protesters in camo and people blocking off roads. The irony of it is that was the police force. The police are the ones wearing the camo. The police are the ones actually blocking everything off. Yeah. And now they've stuck locks on fences. It's like, I think it's a bit backwards.
Yeah. So peaceful protest, which is a necessary component of a functioning democracy, the ability for the people to express themselves without force.
For as long as they want.
Yeah.
There's no statute of limitations.
Exactly. So those are just the facts. And anyone on the ground will tell you the same thing. So then what happened on Saturday was, so we had been up Wednesday evening, Thursday, Friday, Ben and I, and we were there for the purpose of standing with the truckers, so that if anything happened, if there was a clamp down, an arrest made, that we would say, you know what, we appreciate these men and women and their sacrifices. What they're doing is lawful. And if you are going to be a tyrant and break the law and destroy the rule of law in the city, then we're going to actually identify with them and stand and be counted. So, and they put out the call. Like they said, we need people, and we just saw it as our civic duty. And as Christian men, it's like, well, they give the orders, right? And it was the RCMP officer and a former military and a former police officer as well. And so I'm like, well, they know what they're doing, you know? So if they want citizens to come and peacefully stand on Parliament Hill, then we're going to do it. So we went down, and it was a tense couple days because everyone knew at any moment something could happen. And I think Trudeau, what day did he pass the Emergency Act?
Monday.
Yeah, it was Monday.
It was this past Monday?
It was a week ago. A week and a half ago now.
Yeah. And then Wednesday, they put out the call to come to Ottawa.
Okay.
Now, he proclaimed it on Monday, but technically Parliament is supposed to vote on it and pass it before it goes into effect.
Right.
But they started, I guess they started just using the Emergency Act right away, even though it hadn't.
Well, the whole protest was done before they voted on it. The thing was over on Saturday.
Well, yeah, they were supposed to talk about it on Friday and vote on it, and then just canceled Parliament on that day and said, yeah, we don't really need to pass this thing. We're just going to act as if it's already passed.
Yeah. Now, I heard, though, because I was confused about that as well, but somebody told me, and maybe you can verify if this is true, that when he invoked the Emergencies Act on Monday, it did come into effect.
Okay. But it had to be ratified in a certain amount of time?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Is that right? Is that
I
how
think
it
that's
works?
how it is.
Sounds-
Yeah.
But either way, that was on the table when we were down there. And we on the Friday, the police came out in full force, far down from Parliament. I don't know the streets. We're talking about like hundreds of meters away from Parliament Hill, the center of the protest. And they formed a line, and there were, police officers in normal clothes, but there was also, it looked like RCMP SWAT or something. Like they had assault rifles.
The guys with the dark green?
Not those. They had dark green, but they weren't the riot police dark green. Those people were from Quebec.
Okay.
And they came on the Saturday. So these were, I'm assuming, Ontario police officers, and they had the cavalry there, the horses.
Snipers on the rooftops as well.
Yeah, people on the rooftop. So it was a big show of force, and it wasn't clear what was going to happen. So we made our way down when they came out, and I didn't know what was going to happen. When we first formed up, the protesters first kind of wandered down to see what was going on. They formed two lines of police and the protesters. And the protesters just stood there. And we're basically saying, like, why are you doing this? Like, this is a peaceful protest. Like, we're allowed to be here. Shame on you. Why are you doing this type of thing? And at one point, the police said, move. Like, they yell move and like, march forward. And the whole line of protesters just moved back initially. And the irony is they probably that day could have literally marched all the way up to Parliament Hill and just said move, and people would have yelled stuff at them like, what are you doing and why are you doing this? But would have complied because, again, no one was violent. As the police chief said, no officers were hurt in this, despite the extreme measures they were taking, despite the fact that for not even just a week, like before they even came, we're castigating them as the most morally reprehensible people and demonizing them despite all of these things. Not even listening to them, not even having the courtesy to come out, which under normal circumstances would understandably build up resentment and frustration. Everyone was very understanding and showed extreme self-control given the circumstances. It was actually shocking. Anyways, it was a tense day, and they kind of moved forward slowly. And that was the day that the elderly lady with her walker was trampled by the horses. And you can watch the video, and I saw her. So 100%, this lady had a walker. And
you could tell from the pictures.
And like 100 different videos. This is why when the police chief came out and said it was misinformation.
They said it was photoshopped in
by the protesters.
Yeah.
It's like, bud, do you know that everyone there had a cell phone and they were filming for like 6 hours before this event? Like, everyone saw this lady on 100 different videos for hours. And it was such a bold-faced, malicious lie. And anyways, I didn't know that she got run over. So when I'm doing my live streams on Facebook, I did some Facebook Lives. I'm telling everyone, it's generally peaceful because up at the main stage, it's just party central like it always is. I didn't realize that had happened until I watched the videos. So Saturday morning, we wake up. And
so let me just stop for a second.
Yeah.
How many people were there on Friday? How many protesters do you think?
I mean,
was it like 500? Was it 8,000?
It wasn't 8,000. I mean, it could have been
like 2,000 or 3,000.
Yeah, a couple thousand maybe. Yeah. It's hard to even say if that's. It's hard to judge.
It was more spread out.
It was more spread out because it's a huge area, like all the way down the street. So it's hard to say, but not a ton. And they had been pushing the threats through the media that they would be implementing tactics they'd never seen before in the city, and that there was checkpoints and safe zones, and they were trying to deter people from coming in for the weekend, which they did an effective job of. So Saturday they ended at the end of the day. We finally went to bed because they did a blockade just past the Fairmont Hotel, still hundreds of meters away from Parliament Hill, and so we just thought, what was the point of today? Like, why did you just move from like way out of the protest area to just kind of, getting to the edges of it. What was the point of this?
You didn't think they were coming further the next
Well,
day?
it was hard to tell what they were thinking. So I woke up on Saturday and I looked at some live video of it. We were about 10 minutes away. And there was like 5 or 6 cops just standing there, like just normal police, just standing on the other side. They put a barricade up. So I thought, maybe they were just trying to clear out the street by the Fairmont, the famous hotel. So all the rich people could still not have to deal with the peasants kind of thing. Anyways, so we hit the road. We were going to check out of our hotel and went home. Once we got to Carlton Place for breakfast, we pull over and we see all the videos, and a fellow pastor, Steve Richardson, is putting up on social media that he was basically assaulted 3 or 4 times as he was moving away. He never confronted the police. He was actually trying to defend people who were being hurt. At one point, he knelt down with the trucker and put his hands behind his head to kind of be arrested. And they just laid the boots to him and started hitting him and stuff. And other protesters had to pull him out. He's not a big guy. And he was totally non-threatening posture and all of this. It was often as he was staying still or moving away. So we thought, we got to get back down there. So Ben and I just turned around and went back and managed to get through a blockade. The officer was facing the other way and ran downtown.
So you just ran through a checkpoint?
Well, kind of. Like, they didn't try and stop us because he was just busy.
You killed like 15 cops, didn't you?
Yeah. And
it honestly felt like a little Black Ops mission trying to get in there on Saturday.
So Jacob was with another guy, Jeremy, a brother in the Lord up in Ottawa, and Tristan was with Justin and Calvin. And so there's 3 groups, Ben and I, Jacob and Jeremy. Jeremy got arrested in the morning just for standing in the wrong place. And maybe I'll pass it over to you to share your experience now.
Yeah, so we had decided like earlier in the week, we couldn't get there Wednesday night like Alex and Ben did, but we knew, okay, we're going to go as soon as we can and stand with the protesters. So we went up Friday night. Saturday morning, Jeremy and I, my friend, were looking for a way in. We tried initially to go in kind of the back way in behind Parliament. There's actually like, it's pretty awesome. There's like 100, 150 other protesters that were literally walking across the frozen like river there to get in behind from in behind,
including elderly like Polish ladies.
Yes, yeah,
with more courage than most Christian men this year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So anyways, Jeremy knew like there was a path there and then some stairs that went up to the street. So we were just going to walk up the stairs and go over and join the protests. And we get there and we find construction workers reinforcing fencing, like big, tall fencing, blocking people out. And so Jeremy just started talking to them. He was like, well, why are you guys doing this? Have you thought about what you guys are participating in? Like he was just kind of challenging them. Like, have you actually put any thought or consideration into what you're doing right now? And then a cop saw him talking and came over and just started yelling at him to leave. Just leave now. Get out of here. And Jeremy turned and just started asking the police officer, well, what am I doing? Like, I'm just standing on a stairwell. I live in Ottawa. And the officer was just not having any of it. He kept saying, leave now or you will be arrested. Leave now or you will be arrested. And Jeremy just was innocently asking why. And so anyways, it was kind of gross the way the officer responded. Like he wasn't, calmly dealing with the situation in any way. He was just ticked off that somebody
he wasn't in the right. If you're in the right, you don't have to get aggravated.
Exactly.
You got the high ground, right?
It was very reflexive. It was very angry. And so anyways, he just pulled the fencing apart and ran down, and 3 other cops came with him and just grabbed Jeremy and put him in handcuffs. So the whole thing was like, it was like a 10-second interaction. It was wild how fast it happened. Just for standing on a stairway.
But they didn't arrest you.
No, they threatened to.
Jacob had already run the other
yeah, I was already 50 feet away. No, I was filming. And he did come at me. And I asked for his name and badge number. He ignored me, told me to leave. I asked for his name and badge number again. which you're supposed to give as an officer. You have to identify yourself.
But it's an emergency, so they don't have to do anything.
Yeah. And so anyways, he then came at me, and I had already resigned myself to the fact that I'm probably getting arrested today, and I was fine with that, but our wives were 15 feet away watching the whole thing happen, and I figured that one of us should probably stay and help get everything figured out.
Yeah.
So I took a few steps back and said, okay, fine, I'm leaving. And so then we didn't hear from Jeremy for a few hours. I had no idea what was going on with him. So that was kind of our first, experience trying to get down there.
So meanwhile, Tristan and Calvin and Justin are at the protest, and the police have made their way all up Wellington, Parliament Hill, cleared it out, and they're coming down the hill. They're about, when we show up, they're about 50 to 100 yards.
You guys were near the Westin Hotel, right?
Yeah, I think so. We we parked in Chinatown, I think, and walked in. It was extremely hard to find a parking spot, but we found like a municipal spot, and you could tell everyone in that parking spot was a freedom-loving Canadian. This guy pulls up. He's from Alberta. He's like, "Is there any spots in here?" Like, I don't know, just pick a spot. We got to get down there. So we, your brother had a huge Canadian flag on a big broom pole. I'm like, man, you got to leave that because we're not going to be able to get in if we start swinging that thing around. So
isn't it funny how the Canadian flag is actually like they treat it as if you're carrying a swastika?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, look at that guy. That guy's got that's a bad man.
Yeah,
In their mind,
it's our flag.
In their mind, it represents something just as evil.
Yeah,
That's why they hate our country.
yeah.
They hate Western culture.
Yeah, so we got down there, and between Bank and what's the one further up the road? The police started pushing down like a narrow corridor between Bank and or it was
Rito?
Wellington. My street, I can't remember what street I live on. So, but yeah, they were literally like sandwiching on both sides, pushing down, and at that point, you guys showed up, and Justin joined you, and me and Calvin were on the left side against the Parliament building fences. And
There's a cavalry was there
yeah, there's like a
behind the horse.
3 rows of cops, and then behind them was the big military vehicle with the sound, that sound beacon that's supposed to blister your face.
Your drums, yeah.
Yeah.
Did they use that?
No, and they wouldn't have because there's a lot of police didn't have ear protection on. So I think it's just intimidation. I wouldn't put it past them at that point. So they start pushing over, and then you guys were to the right, and my brother Ben comes up to me and says, "We're going to be pulling back." And in typical Ben fashion, he's just kind of a vague, like, in his words, that meant come over here with us. And I was just like, no, I'm going to stay with Calvin because I thought you guys were leaving.
So what we had decided to do is to take a knee by the barrier because the horses couldn't get through. They couldn't trample us through a barrier, so they wouldn't use them. And it would be a non-combative thing, like we're just sitting here, Anyways, we sent Ben to tell him, and the message that came across was "run for your life" or something. So it's not what we meant. So they stayed.
Yeah, we stayed. Me and Calvin were doing our best to tell them a bit about Jesus and
that's great.
Whether or not it got through. But yeah, and then they kept pushing faster and harder, and then, from my perspective, we went to go find you guys, and I couldn't find you. And I'm like, I didn't even think that the fact you were arrested didn't even cross my mind. I was like, oh, they went back, so maybe they went down the road or something. So I was calling, and I was like, this is weird. Oh, well, I guess we'll stay here. And at that point, they had reached the barrier where you guys were, and I hadn't known it, and I'd already been arrested at that point. And then Calvin gets a text like, hey, they've been arrested. I was like, what? My first instinct was, without us? Like, why didn't they tell us?
Which I was thankful for, because I was like,
you were trying to run in at that point.
I was desperately looking for a way in at this point. And I'd been in contact with you, and you had kind of told me there was supposedly this way through Chinatown. So I had driven over and gotten dropped off, and then was trying to sort of make my way through these police checkpoints to get to where they were. And eventually I did get there, and I was thankful that Tristan and Calvin were still standing.
And from, maybe you tell your...
So we took a knee, and they had been pepper spraying people, and we had seen people treated very roughly. And we had known from the day before that women were trampled by the horses, people were beaten, like we'd seen that. So we were fully expecting that we were at least going to get pepper sprayed. And I just told the guys, cover your heads, protect your heads and keep your head down kind of thing. They have these little speakers, and they're like, your protest could be more effective if you leave and go to the other side of the barrier. And it's just like, no, the whole principle is that I'm allowed to be here, that this is peaceful. We're allowed to be here. So we just stayed put. Anyways, they're like, you're going to be arrested. And I said, I know. And he's like, do you want to be arrested? And I just nodded like, well, I'm not leaving. So they arrested all three of us. And interestingly, one of the police told Ben, they patted him on the back and said like, good job. And we're proud of you guys and stuff like that.
So weird.
It's so weird. And it's also like, I almost don't really respect that.
No, I don't either.
It's like, you shouldn't be here then. Like, you need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all the conservatives.
Disconnecting what you believe from what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really care what you say. You know what would have been powerful if y'all just actually, the day they cancel Parliament, which was obscene, you should have gone to Parliament.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to go to Parliament, you should have come out and taken a knee. Is what you should have done.
Or for the previous 2 years, if you'd been actually being the opposition and giving a voice to the people, that'd be something too.
Yeah. So we were arrested. We were put in the same truck. There's two sides, and Justin and I are in the same side, and then Ben's in the other. And Ben got to share the gospel with the people he was in the van with. And we had great chats with the guys we were in with, and they dropped us like way out of town. Unfortunately, we were together, and we just called Jeremy, the same guy who had been arrested earlier, and he just came and picked us up. He'd already been released. Mm-hmm. So then you guys, you heard we were arrested.
So Calvin was in a frenzy trying to phone people, see where we could find you guys, where you're being taken, and we ran up to a police checkpoint and asked, like, hey, our friends got arrested, where they'd taken them. And he's like, well, I don't really know. Maybe you could check the Ottawa police station there. So we weren't sure what to do. We were definitely came a point where we were conflicted. One side was, well, how are we going to get vehicles to you guys? How are we supposed to not get arrested so we can help out with you guys what you guys couldn't? So we were conflicted. Then Jacob showed up, and we definitely had a conversation like, what should we do? In one sense, we all knew the risk going there. It's not like it wasn't a fear crossing our minds.
Right.
It's more just a practical side. Well, if I'm honest with myself, there was a bit of a, am I doing the right thing? That did come through my mind quickly. Am I doing this just because my brother and Alex and Justin did? And I am thinking through that at the moment. I was thinking, well, our church has been following our eldership for the past 2 years. And, our church has gone through some pretty rough times. And I've never been more glad the past 2 years eagerly following, the shepherds put over us. So I thought, this isn't a sinful inclination to want to follow the good example of our brothers. And also we are just, this has, in my mind, was the climax of the past 2 years. And, it was the right place to be, and I wouldn't have been anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we prayed about it in the middle of the street. We're like, well, committed to the Lord. And Jacob, I think you asked me, how are we going to go down? And you said we should sing A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. And I was like, I think it made me get to verse 2, and then I'd start stumbling. So I said, do Amazing Grace.
That didn't quite pan out.
As long as you get let goods and kindred go.
Yeah.
So we walked to the front, and we were definitely worried about getting trampled as they were starting to get ready to push again. Because there's that initial frenzy of like when they started to push, people push in, push out. So we thought, well, maybe after they do their first push, people back up, then we'll move to the front lines, take a knee, and go that way. That's kind of what we did, except before the push, I guess I just started talking to the officers in front of me. I had a good chance to, speak about the freedom in Christ, and I was struck by I think each and every one of us came away with very specific images that will always be locked in our mind. Mm-hmm. For me, it was looking the police in the eyes and just seeing their humanity, their frailty. and I told them, you guys have a uniform on. This is the only thing that's different between me and you. Your life is a vapor, and you are going to be accountable for your actions today, as am I. And looking back, I'm just very thankful. You know, I didn't feel any fear in doing that, like looking them in the eye. And that's not even remotely a bit of a boasting. It was all of the Lord who just gave us the confidence. I feel like after we prayed, it was just like, this is the right thing to do. Yeah. And what happened after that?
Well, it was, one of the things that actually stuck with me about that was, as you were speaking to the officers, one of them actually did talk to you and say, I think he said, "Thank you for ministering to us," which I was initially impressed by, but then he said, "But I'm not here to talk about religion and philosophy.
That's right.
I have a job to do," or something like that.
Yeah.
I will crush you.
Yeah.
He was very angry. Like, he's like, same thing. You can protest over there.
Yeah.
At that point, I said, you missed the point.
Yeah. And I just thought it was interesting, though, that, you know, he said, "I'm not here to talk about religion and philosophy," when his religion and philosophy is the reason that he was there.
That's right.
Right. It's like, you can't separate those things and talk about them as if they belong in a separate category that has nothing to do with your actions. It's like, you are taking the position that you're taking because of what you worship and what you believe about yourself and the world. And so to hear him just sort of dismiss those as if they were insignificant and had no bearing on the situation was frustrating.
It was interesting seeing some cops nod. In my mind, there's three different kind of cops there. There's a cop who's there because he has a bone to chew, and he's more than happy to throw people in cop cars. There's the police there who is doing what he's been told, and he's believed that lie that he has no choice. And then there's the third who legitimately believes that he is just clearing the streets so that things get back to normal. He is, and they're all deceived in their own way. Yeah, and then we kneeled down, took the same approach as they did, and at that point they started screaming at us. Like, they sent out the intimidator. There's this big guy who's just like yelling in my ear, "Move, move," and he's kicking my feet, trying to get me,
kind of shoving you with his baton and stuff.
I'm like, it's like, I'm not moving. This is why we came here. And then, yeah, another image that will stick with me is after being thrown to the ground in perfect peace. I didn't find it comical, but it really was. I was looking up the Parliament building, looking at the Canadian flag, being like, well, this is the Canada we're in. It was like, and being a perfect peace with it. And yeah, and then just being put in a cop car was kind of surreal. Like,
yeah.
You know, what was your perspective?
Well, I had a similar kind of moment. It was after they had they'd put the cuffs on us, walked us to the edge, and then they walked us up Wellington Street, right in front of the Parliament buildings.
Yeah, same.
Before,
that's where they did the processing.
Yeah, before putting us in the transport vehicles. And, you know, I'd been to Ottawa the last 2 weekends and seen the joy and the happiness of the protest, the peacefulness of the protest. And then to be there again in a radically different situation, being walked in front of these buildings that are supposed to represent the supremacy of God and the rule of law and freedom, but I'm in handcuffs for being on the street. That was a very surreal experience that I will never forget. And yeah, just had a similar sort of thought as you, that just the Canada that, I don't know, that I once knew is just not here anymore.
Then I get to the paddy wagon, is the one guy was calling it, and you open the door and you're sitting in there, and this is a funny thing in my mind, where you're like, "Hey brother, welcome," and I'm like, when have the police ever heard, maybe they have, I know, crazy lunatics, but like people happy being thrown in this transport wagon. And you know, we get thrown in there, and I end up meeting this guy I grew up with, who I didn't even know was there. He's a believer. His nephew's in the other transport vehicle with our other friend, who is a believer. And you told me, you're like, how many Christians are they going to arrest before they realize that something's up?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
So maybe we could talk about why we did that. You know, why did we think it was okay to be arrested? And when I was speaking on Sunday on this, initially I'm like, well, I should explain to my congregation why their pastor is arrested and still is preaching, which on one hand is true, but on the other hand, it's like, actually, I'm in pretty good company. Like, Paul and Peter and John, spent
Prophets.
it's like they spent time in prison. They spent time at the hands of the authorities, like facing the threats of the rulers of the age. And obviously Jesus was crucified by them. So it was just funny that my impulse is like, obviously I need to justify this. And in a way, I want to tell people what happened. But it's like the fact that that a Christian man is arrested for, a cause is not, it shouldn't be like an automatic, oh, you must be disqualified, or that must be a sign of a character flaw or sin or something like that. It could be. But it might just be that you are walking in righteousness. So for me, a big reason I was there was to stand with the oppressed. It says in Psalm 10 that the Lord hears the desires of the afflicted, and he gives justice to the oppressed and the fatherless. And I think, sadly, a lot of conservatives, in their desire to kind of distance themselves from a social gospel or woke stuff, don't. They need to recognize that social justice, as far as justice towards your neighbor, is a biblical concept, and it's actually a part of the character of God. It's who he is. That he is, not only is he aware, he has a unique ear towards those who don't have the ear of those in power. And many people over the last 2 years have been severely abused by those in power. And it is what we see in this time is what Paul called it's the utter contempt that the ruling class has towards the lower class people and the working class people. The language you use, not many of you were noble, but you were despised. God shows what is despised in the world. And from the day one, from the politicians to the media, to the academics, to the wealthy people in their condos with their laptops who've kept their jobs the whole time, the Zoom class, COVID has been an entirely different experience for them. They've kept their jobs, probably gotten raised. It's an inconvenience, right? It hasn't been easy. We all do our part. And if that's all this was, there's nothing to talk about. But for a huge portion of people, this has been deadly. People have died years earlier than they ought to have in isolation and long-term care. People were not protected from COVID. People were not offered effective therapies. We've done this political theater where we're masking 2-year-olds. All a mask is at this point, and there's no disputing this, it is an allegiance badge. It's what side are you on? And that's all it is. And people's lives have been ruined economically. These people just have no concern for their neighbors that way. They just, the noise was so traumatic. You know what I mean? And the utter contempt. So we're Christian men, and we ought to reflect our God. And we ought to, when we look at the afflicted, and we look at the oppressed, and we look at those who are wronged and who suffer under the abuse of authority and the setting aside of the rule of law, and the lies, we ought to be siding with them. We ought to be the ones out front. And I preached this on Sunday, but it is such an indictment on the church that some elderly woman in a walker is at the front of that line. That is such a shameful indictment of especially Christian men and especially pastors. And Jesus has nothing but contempt for those people. And there's a day of reckoning coming. So that's the first reason. And the other thing is just on a principle as a pastor. So I was there as a Christian man before anything else. I was just there as a Christian man. And I was also there as a pastor to remind the state that they have limits to their power. And that our charter happens to uphold that. But even if it didn't, it still is true. And that they are subject to the law of God. And they are not a law unto themselves. And I am there to peacefully and respectfully, and even within the bounds of the law, express that to them, And Daniel did the same thing, right? look, I'm here to serve you. I'm a good servant. I'm a faithful citizen. You know that. You've appointed me to the position of authority. But if you ask me to treat you as a god, it's not going to happen. And when you say that you are above the law, you are saying you are a god. And it is the duty of every Christian pastor to remind the state that they are not.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar is not Lord.
Yeah.
Jesus is.
And with Daniel, what I love about him as well is that he doesn't do that privately either, right? It's like
he opens the window.
Exactly. He goes and opens the window. He publicly defies the overreach.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing in the law of God that required him to open his window.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Maybe I'll ask this to all you guys here. You said something about social justice, and I know that makes a lot of the hair on the back of their neck stand up because they're expecting something else to come next. But I think one of the reasons we're in the bind we are with this bad social gospel, the false justice that we're getting from the CRT crew and BLM and groups like that, one of the reasons that's made its way into the church is because the church had abandoned that aspect of the gospel.
Yes.
And we've been promoting like a pietistic, therapeutic gospel for 100 years now or more, and we've abandoned the social sphere in a sense.
Yeah.
To our shame. And so that's left a gaping need there. And a lot of people rightly see that the church has not done what it's supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
And so, of course, you get people come in and say, hey, well, there's this injustice here, and you guys are just ignoring it. So now I'm going to address it. Mm-hmm. But then they don't come with the right solutions because they're coming with the world's solutions instead of God's solutions.
And when you don't have the real thing, you can a counterfeit looks real. Like the only way you tell a counterfeit is by judging it compared to the real thing. Mm-hmm. And you go, which one of these is true? And when you don't have the scriptures, you're not preaching and teaching on what it means to live a faithful Christian life in relation to your neighbor, in relation to those in authority, in relation to the oppressed, this type of thing. What is my job? If you're not doing that, then the first person to stand up and say, I think we should do this sounds reasonable.
Yeah, they put their finger on the problem. I'm going to follow them.
Yeah, exactly. So 100%. And then in Canada, the church has adopted the worldliness of Canadians. Is it Peckford? Mm-hmm. Brian Peckford, former premier of Newfoundland
and Labrador for 10 years.
For 10 years, and the last living drafter of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. He said in his interview with Jordan Peterson, he acknowledged that for about 40 years or something, he said, Canadians have checked out of politics for a variety of reasons. It's unsightly. It's kind of irrelevant. Like Canada runs so well that it's like, what does politics has to do with anything? Really, it has everything to do with everything in Canadian society. But Canadians check out. So it's funny that you see Canadian evangelicals coming up with pietistic, quasi-biblical reasons for why Christians should not be political. But all they're doing is reflecting the worldly culture around them. Mm-hmm. They're not at all being a prophetic voice. They're not doing anything. This isn't based on biblical categories. This is pure Canadianism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They
only react against one type of political engagement as well.
Right.
They're not reacting against, or they're not reacting as strongly against Christians who are promoting leftist causes.
Right.
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 But if you're at all conservative leaning and trying to apply the gospel in that way, well, you're just trying to bring politics into the church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious before we wrap up here. What are some of the takeaways for you guys and your experience of the last 3 weeks as a whole, but then maybe also in particular the last weekend?
Well, the text I preached on Sunday, where Jesus had compassion on the crowds, they were like sheep without a shepherd, and they were abused by their leaders. And I just think Christians ought not to have the contempt of the world towards people. They ought to have the compassion of Jesus. And that there is Jesus ends that by saying pray to the Lord of the harvest, because the harvest is plentiful and the laborers are few. And there's a huge harvest. Like there was such a willingness for people to listen. People who are hopeless and powerless will receive the power of Christ. It's the people who think they're powerful, who can't bend their knee. And so that was a big takeaway, that there is a huge field here. The other thing is, over the course of COVID, my fear of man has been dying. When I first got asked to speak publicly, I remember being kind of nervous and feeling that shame, like almost embarrassment, like, really, I'm going to preach the gospel at this non-Christian event? Like, ooh, what if they think I'm an idiot? And I remember it's like, wow, that's an awful thing to think. You know, it's like, what are you going to do? Just always preach to Christians? Like, and it was just a shameful fear. And so I had to put that to death. And as we did that, it died. But something this week in Ottawa died, and that I don't care at all if people don't like that I did that. I mean, I listen to my elders, I listen to my wife and Christian brothers, you know, where I'm accountable to people. But what I mean is, I do not care for the scoffers. I don't care for my ministry to reflect the accusations of, you know, respond to the accusations of worldly people. I just want it to reflect the Lord Jesus Christ. And real ministry is just messy. Real ministry is like the back of a paddy wagon with, you know, a rough crowd. And that's just what ministry looks like. It doesn't look like the respectability that you know, of our culture. It doesn't look like cultural capital. It doesn't look like everyone claiming the name of Jesus is so proud of you. You might take a lot of criticism and contempt. And I just reached a place where I don't care. And you know how many people have reached out to me who are totally overlooked people just thanking me? It's not upper middle class. I don't just mean economically. I just mean like you're culturally, you are buffered from these things. It's the people who face the consequences of these things that say, hey, thanks for doing that. You know, thanks for standing up for us. And that's just where the focus of my ministry is going to be, you know, not on making, you know, convincing other people of things. So I really felt that coming home. What about you?
I think for me, well, there was one experience that I had that I think will stick with me for the rest of my life, and it was running into those two Polish ladies that you mentioned earlier. This was after Jeremy had been arrested, and we were kind of making our way back to the vehicle, and we ran into these two Polish ladies who had bussed in from Toronto to be there.
Wow.
They're probably in their early 60s. And they're almost frantic, like they're hurrying along, frantically looking for a way to get in. And they said to me, they asked me if I knew a way in. I said I was looking for one, and they said, we heard they're tear gassing the protesters. We have to get down there. These like elderly women, right, who had bussed in from Toronto and who had spent the last 3 days working at one of the churches downtown, making meals for the truckers and the protesters and caring for people. I was just so impressed by the courage of those women and the courage of so many of the people who I met on Saturday. And courage begets courage. Like I found that, you know, I was saying to Michaela, Jacob Leeming does not naturally go to confrontational kind of environments like that. I like to make a coffee and read a book on a Saturday afternoon. That's my ideal Saturday afternoon, not facing down a row of riot police. But by the grace of God and the help of good men, that was something that I was able to, and I'm thankful for that I was able to participate in. And so I think one of the things that I did take away is that we need each other. We need the body of Christ to be courageous and to stand for righteousness. And we need to do that together. And then the other thing as well that I've just been thinking about is that truth matters. And whoever is running the Ottawa Police Twitter account is a liar. And you know, we've been living in this culture of relativism for a long time without actually feeling the full effects of it before. Like before, it's just you have your truth and I have my truth, and leave me alone so that I can do what I want to do and that kind of thing. But up until this point, no one has really been harmed to a certain extent. It's like you can ruin your own life that way. But now we're seeing it where, because there's such a blatant disregard for the truth, now you can just label people, you can just lie about people and then punish them for it. Like the federal government mustering as much power as it possibly could for a state-sanctioned witch hunt.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's where a disregard for truth has led us. And now we're starting to see just how harmful that idea can be. And we need to repent for that. So those would be two things that I've kind of taken away from it. What about you, Tristan?
I think in line with what I've been reading recently, in Hosea, Hosea says, "Those who sow the wind will reap the whirlwind." So with me, it was the vanity of these officers who we stared in the face and who are longing for a pension in their 60s and then can live the rest of their 5 years of life in freedom. And I was thinking, what are we sowing that has eternal significance? And then I fell upon, I don't remember where it is in the Psalms, but those who sow basically those who sow the seed of tears, bearing seeds for the harvest, will reap. I'm butchering will reap joy, basically. And the idea of bearing seed, to me, is like, it is a burden, and it's a weight, but it's a weight in as much as you're carrying it in tears. Even as we think of the Lord Jesus in Gethsemane, bearing that weight that I'll never be able to comprehend, and the tears that came down. But what was the harvest of the Lord Jesus Christ's death? The harvest was beyond comprehension of the God-man raising from the dead and bringing new life to the world. And in the same way, we follow our Lord Jesus. We take up our cross, and at times that can feel like a weight. Those seeds in our pack sack is a weight. But as we sow them, and as we see the harvest, as you mentioned, now the harvest is plentiful, and we've just begun to see. In my lifetime, I've been a Christian for a long time. I would put quotes around that, and I honestly had never seen someone come to Christ in my past, however long I've been a Christian for, and that's sad. In the past 2 years, I've seen more people come to Christ, and I have more brothers now that I've seen come from darkness to light. It's just it's glorious to be part of this, and not to be someone who is, and I'm not ever for a moment thinking that I'm any better than those who sit behind a computer screen, but I give God the glory. But I'm so thankful for a church, a small community of believers who have stood together in the past 2 years, who have had some fearful times with police and things that I would not have expected would come. But it was a complete joy to stand with my brothers in Ottawa and face the police. I had no fear because we've just been, the testimony of what God is doing with this harvest is right before our eyes, and I feel really bad for those Christians who think it's safer and wiser to be at home. You're missing out on a glorious time. So that's
amen, brother.
Well, thanks to all three of you guys, and to Justin and Calvin, the other guys that went down. It was pretty inspirational seeing and now hearing the story. I hadn't actually heard all these stories before today, so thank you for doing that, and I'm sure there's going to be more opportunity for us to join and to show some courage. So we pray that that happens again, and that there will be more peaceful opportunity for us to do that. So, but for now, we'll see you next time on the Dominion Podcast. What are we talking about next time? You got any idea?
No idea.
Something really just obscure and obtuse. No.
And yet enlightening.
Actually, you know what? I think we were thinking of doing the topic of liberty and freedom.
Yes, that's it.
And dealing with that, just because
It's not a white supremacist thing.
No, freedom's got a bad name all of a sudden for some reason. Turns out people like to be slaves. So
Or rulers.
Or rulers, yeah, they like to be one or the other. Well, from us at the Dominion Podcast, we'll see you next time.